28th, 2021 special Wasilla City Council meeting is called to order. The time is 6 p.m. Before we begin, council, please put away cell phones. If you've got personal business to attend to during the meeting, please move for a recess. Also, when speaking, please remember to state your name for those streaming the meeting. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Rousseff. Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Johnson.
Here, off by a phone.
Thank you. Councilmember Burney.
Here.
Councilmember Velock.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
You do have a quorum, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Harvey did call. He's absent this evening and excused unless there's objection from the body. Council members Rousseff, Velock, and Brown are participating with us here in council chambers. Johnson and Burney are telephonic.
Thank you, ma'am. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Brown, would you lead us?
Yes, ma'am. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask if we have any proposed amendments to the budget, if this is the time to mention that, or...
Okay, do you have any amendments?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm sorry? Yes.
Thank you through the chair to Councilmember Rousseff. Thank you for disclosing that you do have amendments. We have 3 that are written out, that were handed out, that are sponsored by administration. So once we reach the point of the public hearing this evening, once it's closed, we'll have a main motion to adopt the ordinance, and then at that time, amendments are in order.
Thank you, and as legal pointed out, I'm not here as a council member to discuss the details of the budget. It might take some time from administration, if council supports my amendments, to figure out those details and bring the budget back. So I just wanted to mention that now. Thank you.
Okay. So did we change the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, the agenda will stand as presented. Next on the agenda is public hearings. There's one public hearing scheduled this evening, a continuation of the public hearing on Ordinance Serial Number 2121. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the ordinance.
Thank you. This is providing for the adoption of the annual budget for fiscal year 2022 and appropriating funds to carry out said budget. And this public hearing was continued from the special meeting on April 26, 2021.
Anyone would like to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. And seeing no one, we will close public hearing. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2121?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Brown, I move that we adopt ordinance 2121.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, Tim Johnson seconds it.
Okay. Council, there are 3 written amendments from administration. Please move the amendments one at a time.
So, Madam Mayor, if council, maybe just reading these now, if there is desire then to move the amendment number 1 is the first one on the sheet. We just need a first and a second. We can have discussion and then we'll vote on whether or not that amendment passes, and we'll process 2 and 3 in the same manner.
Madam Mayor, I move that we adopt amendment number 1.
Is there a second?
Councilmember Velock, second.
Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor, this is Tim Johnson. Would you please read a brief of the amendment for me, please?
Okay, Troy?
Madam Mayor, so amendment number 1 really is a reclassification from account line 3034 within the finance department. I had inadvertently put the $18,000 in that account when in fact it should have been in account 5091 with the other merchant service costs associated to the MuniRev system. The MuniRev system has direct merchant charges to the city of Wasilla that are offset through convenience fees collected through the same system. But these charges, it's just simply a reclass to get in the right account. Has no,
Thank you, Troy.
Yep, has no impact on the budget itself.
It's like a technical amendment.
It's basically a technical amendment.
Correct.
Yes, understood. Thank you very much.
Yes. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to approve amendment number 1? Hearing none, amendment number 1 is approved. Okay,
Madam Mayor, I move that we adopt amendment number 2.
is there a second?
Councilmember Velox, second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Brown and seconded by Councilmember Velox to adopt amendment number 2. Is there any discussion?
Again, I would like to have a quick summary, please. This is Councilmember Johnson.
Is that the Parks CIP one?
No, it's
That's what I meant. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Archie Giddings, Public Works Director. I initially prepared that budget as a standard line item at, I believe it's 20,000. And subsequently, after I put the budget together, my maintenance supervisor came to me and suggested we got an extra roof this year to work to replace. Thank you. So
Thank you.
It's 15,000. Yeah. So we're adding $12,000 to deal with another roof on one of the old town site buildings.
Thank you. This is Councilmember Johnson.
Is there any further discussion? Is there objection to approve amendment number 2? Hearing none, amendment number 2 is approved.
Madam Mayor, I move we adopt amendment number 3.
Is there a second?
Councilman Brown, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Velox, second that.
It has been moved by Councilmember Brown and seconded by Councilmember Velox. Is there any discussion?
Madam
Good
Mayor,
night.
I don't know if this is a Troy Tankersley question. I see it's prepared by Troy, or Parks, but see it's requesting additional funding to support installation of a credit card machine, foundation, security, and utilities at the campground. I'm just curious as what the priority is there for a credit card machine. Why is that a new priority? Why was it unknown prior to now?
So it's not a new priority, but rather it's an issue we've been dealing with for the past several years. Currently, we have cash boxes, if you will, drop boxes with envelopes in both the campground and the boat launch, and at the airport as well. However, the boat launch and Lucille campground continually get vandalized. In the sense of people trying to steal cash out of the boxes, right? That doesn't help this situation, but when we talk about the Lucille campground specifically, we're getting more and more individuals that want to pay by credit card. And so how do we facilitate that? We tried to do this under the CARES Act funding. The lead time to ordering up the credit card machine and stuff is approximately 3 months, 2 to 3 months, because they build it as they order it. And the idea here is that the machine can, depending on the kind of machine and the cost and whatnot, it does change every time we've gone out and looked for price. The price changes when we go and do that. They do make a machine that does the credit card and take cash. The idea is that we're trying to stop the vandalism and make it easier for the patrons that use the campground and whatnot, and account and for the cash and whatnot that's going on out there. We get more and more and more people wanting to use that campground, and unless the campground host is available at the time to swipe a credit card on his phone or something like that, which is not a great way anyway, we're trying to facilitate that. So the idea here is we would have to run power, obviously, to a concrete foundation, if you will, with a secure type hut during the summer months. The machine would be bolted to the campground. In the fall, the machine would be removed from the foundation and put into the park's shop or some, and then reinstalled in the spring. But it's an idea to facilitate the patrons that use the campground. Like I said, we're getting a lot of requests for it. Unfortunately, I can't say that the ROI on the machine is quick. It's not. But it also provides a service. So,
Mr. Tankersley, I'm curious about a couple of things. This is Councilman Rousa. The first thing is this a new annual expense? Certainly, I'm sure not the entire amount, but a portion of this, I mean, it says security. So is that a physical security measure, or is that an ongoing security measure, or something that needs to continue and needs to be paid for year after year? And then also, does this account for whatever fees might be associated, to processing credit cards and things?
No, so this account is strictly for the building of the concrete pad, running utilities. And when I say security, I mean that the structure that covers the credit card machine to keep it out of the elements of the weather, right? But at the same time, like I was saying, the campground host isn't always there. And so when I say security, I'm talking about the ability to have foresight, say we needed to close the campground for whatever reason, fire danger, whatever. That this hut that surrounds the credit card machine can be locked and secured. I'll leave that up to Public Works to design, but that's what I mean by security. Security is there with the campground host, and they do a pretty good job of trying to maintain that in the campground, along with the aid of the police department, but I'm referring to the security of the machine. As far as convenience fees goes, that'll be a cost, an additional cost to the city when people use the credit cards. That's a small piece.
Thank you. And in response to our presentation on Monday, trying to keep council members on the rails, I'll try my best to stay on the rails here, but I'm just thinking that, a brick and mortar credit card machine might be unnecessary when everyone carries a cell phone in their hands, and you could just as easily get on a web page hosted by the city that is advertised on a sign. Just punch in your credit card details with your license plate number, and boom, you've paid for your spot. And so I just wonder if this isn't a bit antiquated and maybe a poor use of money, where we could start to look at processing city park fees and things in one place online the same way, and what would work for this park would also work for other city services as well. So I don't know. Just these are the thoughts that run through my head looking at this item on the budget. But, thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Council Member Vlock to Mayor. I I am for this just because I agree with Councilmember Rousa that, there are some probably more techie things to do, but we deal with a lot of older people even that camp and handicapped people that I just think it would, we're just not ready for that yet. I think this is a great idea and maybe 5-10 years down the line, maybe it'll change, but there's not a lot of techie old tourists around. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Ms. Vilak.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir?
this is Councilmember Johnson. I appreciate Councilmember Vilak's sentiments. However, being an old codger and totally tech unsavvy, as you can imagine, I have learned one thing this year, particularly with COVID-19, that many restaurants are now going, what are we saying, touchless, if you will, and you aim your cell phone and you take a picture of this little square with these little dots on it, and all of a sudden cool things happen on your cell phone, and you can even order and pay. I was totally technologically impaired. I still am, but I think Councilmember Jordan has really got something that I think an awful lot of seniors, even like me, have come to appreciate. There are some different tech solutions out there which are really cool. Maybe we do both, because the technological investment of a sign is relatively cheap, and if our usage of one versus the other is less, then we kill the one that isn't being used. But I think the sign with the little square things would probably get more use.
Okay. Keep in mind that, as Ms. Vilak said, the older people that's probably 90% of your campers, and not all of them have a cell phone.
Madam Mayor, that's exactly why I said we do both.
Through the mayor, could I ask Mr. Tankersley a question? This is Councilmember Rousa. My question to Mr. Tankersley is, was this credit card machine intended to replace the cash box entirely?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So no more cash?
No, I didn't. The machine I was looking at actually did both.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to approve amendment number 3?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I would not support amendment number 3. I think it needs more thought put into it.
Yes, please. Do roll call.
Okay, we'll do a roll call then, Council, on the adoption of amendment number 3, which looks like is increasing the budget by $15,000 for the installation of a credit card machine at Lake Lucille Campground. Councilmember Rousa, how do you vote?
No.
Councilmember Johnson?
No, not in its current form.
Councilmember Burney?
Yes.
Councilmember Vilak?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Madam Mayor, the motion fails. Per our code, we need 4 votes to carry any motion before the council. It fails with council members Burney, Vilak, and Brown in support. Council members Rousa and Johnson opposed. Council member Harvey is absent.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I comment, please?
Can he? Yes, sir.
My vote is that I did not like it in its current form, and I would like the amendment to come back from Mr. Tankersley at a future meeting with a slightly different proposal. $15,000 we can approve as an adjunct to an existing budget.
Okay. Are there?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry. May I comment as well? I'd just like to put a little reasoning to my no vote.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like Mr. Johnson, I'm not trying to just be a pain in the butt, even though I know that might be the case right now. What I would like to see is a little bit more research. I heard Madam Mayor say that it's primarily elderly people that camp at that campground. Now, I've been through that campground, and I've seen families in there. So I don't know that that's even true. If it is true and it's something that we need to use to base our decision, then I'd like to see some actual data on that. What percentage of our campers are elderly and might be incapable of using their cell phone to make a payment? I don't know. I think that staff probably has a lot more knowledge of that. Certainly the camp host would have better knowledge of that than I would. But if those are the basis for making our decision, I'd like to know more. I'd like to see more research, more support for voting for increasing the budget and spending the city's money that way. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, this is Councilmember Bernie. May I weigh in?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, we're not going to agree on what's going to go in there. Is there a way that Mr. Tankersley could pigeonhole this line item, keep it in our budget, so the money's there, and then now we're just talking about what it's going to be? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Troy's thinking.
Not sure how to respond other than to say, are you referring to like just contingency dollars to come back with details later?
Essentially, yes.
I think I'd prefer Councilman Johnson's idea about coming back just with a new plan, as an amendment to whether it be a already approved budget or otherwise. As far as stats, elderly people, those with cell phones, those that pay cash, those that don't, we don't have those we don't keep those stat information. I can tell you if, who's elderly, who's teenagers, we've got one campground host that's not there 24/7. He takes breaks too, so unless we hire someone to count people and all that stuff, which is actually not a good return probably. So I think from my side, I'd prefer to just come back with another amendment if that's given that choice.
Okay. Thank you, Troy.
Madam Mayor, could I have just 30 seconds?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Brown, I'd just like to encourage everyone to do some research on cyber security and what has happened in the last year since the COVID, and everybody's using cell phones to order, pay for food, pay for everything. Cyber attacks have gone through the roof, and I would strongly, strongly, strongly discourage the phone use. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay, moving on. Are there any further amendments to ordinance serial number 2121?
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Alsa?
Thank you. I have 3 proposed amendments, and like I alluded to earlier, I don't know that it's my place as council to figure out the details of these things, but they are things that I wanted to bring up to council for discussion, if nothing else. And I can take them one at a time if other council members would like to comment on the things that I'm bringing up. The first item that I'd like to bring up is the museum funding. And from what I saw in our curator's presentation, forgive me, this is my first budget cycle, budget process. It may have been a better time to discuss those things then, not knowing really how this process plays out. it's taken me until now to really say something on the record. So what stood out to me was that our curator said that the budget that they're currently operating under has allowed them to survive, to just survive, and that making this change from part-time wages to a full-time position, or part-time positions, to one full-time position, will help them continue to survive under, the new pressures of a growing community. And I was disheartened to hear that. I think that something like our history, our museum, a place where we're highlighting the quality of where we came from, should be cherished to the point where we don't have to just allow them to survive. They should be thriving. They should have a budget enough to at least have staff to adequate staff to do the tasks that are necessary to be safe. I saw something in there about safety. It'd be nice having 2 people at the facility year round, so that, when a patron comes in, they don't feel unsafe. I mean, that seems pretty primitive, but that's what this change is allowing. I think that we should be adding a full-time position and leaving the part-time positions alone, not trading horses, not robbing Peter to pay from Paul, not robbing Peter to pay Paul, but simply just adding where a position is needed, where a position is due. And it would require, I think, more of a budget than what is currently allocated or what's currently proposed to do that. And I think this would need input, obviously, from you, Madam Mayor, and directly working with the curator to figure out where the needs are. But I was not convinced during the curator's presentation that this is adequate, that the funding is adequate to support what the current demands are, and certainly not adequate to support where the demands might be in the near future. So so I just think it needs more thought. They probably need more money from what I saw. Thank
Mr.
you.
Elsa, I can tell you that I have had the discussion with the curator, and this is the plan that we came up with for this budget. And she was thrilled that we came to the conclusion of 2 full-time people. So that's all I can tell you is, she participated in preparing her budget, and she was happy to have gotten what she got. Maybe that's not the right terminology, but...
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate that. I did ask her when she was here in front of us, I did ask a question about this, if it was adequate. And the response that I heard from her was that, it was about surviving. It was about, she said, and this is what she did. She kind of shrugged. Well, I think if you asked any department, that's what she did, right? If you ask any department, they could all say they could use a little more. It's never quite enough, She just seemed really defeated to me as the curator of our museum, sitting in front of me, and I'm just telling you my firsthand experience. Now, I don't work with her, and that's not my job, right? As legal pointed out on Monday, right? Not my job, right? It's mayor's job to work with each department. But from council's perspective, the questions that I asked, the answers that I got, my impression is that they're underfunded and understaffed, and asking her specifically about this position change, it didn't seem from the response I got like it would be adequate, that it's still subpar. So.
Yes. Jamie?
Through the body, so I'm just a parliamentary advisor to this body. You can tell me no, forget about it, we're going to do what we're going to do. But technically, we can do a couple things. The body can agree to go into a committee of the whole and just discuss Mr. Rouse's 3 kind of proposed ideas, or technically speaking, before discussion ensues, we need a motion and a second, and that second is important because then the body knows, are we wasting our time? Is there even support for this concept to discuss? So that's just my little tip.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Bernie, just as a point of order, should these amendments not be in our packets?
Through the chair to Councilmember Bernie, historically, Mr. Bernie, we have always asked for them in writing. It kind of helps things flow, but like any other piece of legislation that is before the body, amendments from the floor are in order. But before we discuss, technically, we should have a motion and a second, and then we discuss the proposal. Or we can move into committee of the whole and kind of have more free-flowing discussion.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Alsa.
I move to discuss changing the museum funding.
Yours would be amendment number 4.
So, Councilmember Rossi, do you want to actually add the dollars? And we could take it at ease and come up with that figure?
Well, Ms. Newman, like I said, I couldn't know what it would take to do what I'm asking. That's going to happen on a functional level. I don't know what it costs to staff the museum, so I can't really ask for specific dollars and cents or anything to that effect, which is why it's really hard as a council member to come with a drafted document like we're looking at for amendments 1, 2, and 3. I'm seeing things from farther out.
Madam Mayor, I move at ease so the clerk can get with Mr. Rouse and show him how to come to those dollar figures.
Okay, we have 8. Okay, amendment number 4. Do I hear a motion? Or we got one on the floor? Okay, is there a motion on amendment number 4?
Madam Mayor.
Okay, then we're going on to amendment number 5.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Amendment number 5, I'd like to propose reconsidering the WPD mechanics position funding at, and if maybe finance could guide me to the page. I had it on my iPad here, but the book page.
Page 126.
Thank you. Page 126. So I could attempt to start this off with a motion to try and keep the discussion a little cleaner. I move to, well, I think this needs discussion, so I'm not sure what my motion would be, except for that I move to not approve this position.
Okay, is there a second? And the motion dies for lack of a second.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I could not second that because I believe that there is justification for the position. So let me make a motion, please. The motion number 5 will now read that we would propose that the funding remain, however, the staff decision be put off, and I would like to see us bid the position through a contractor that would be on site rather than a full-time employee of the city. We could then go either with a contracted position or a full-time position. A contractor would allow the city an awful lot of flexibility. For one thing, we can define how that contract is we can define the duties, and we can still keep the original concept of police not moving cars back and forth with the same quality that we have, but I think we could do it at a less cost. So therefore, my proposal is this. The funding dollars remain in place. However, we did the contract first to various supporters, providers, that would then supply us a mechanic on site.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that for discussion purposes. Thank you. Councilmember Rossa?
Any discussion? Troy?
Through the mayor, Councilman Johnson, from an employee-employer relationship issue at the city and government, we're going to have a PERS problem with that contract labor. So I don't know that that's going to fly.
I do not understand what the PERS would be. This is a contract. They provide the service.
Certainly it's a contract, but it's a city-employed position. It might be a contract doing city work on a full-time.
Yeah, I guess I failed to see. I failed to see the issue in the airline business. I have many contract mechanics that are working for Signature Air or whoever who actually works on site at Northern Air Cargo. The advantage to me is I can let them go at a moment's notice. I don't have to mess with PERS or any of the other thing, and I can define the quality of work. If it isn't up to snuff, I can replace the contract at a blink of an eye. To me, that's a much cleaner way to go rather than have a strict employee.
I'm just bringing it up for consideration and notation in the fact that that'll have to be researched.
Mr. Brown?
Madam Mayor, to the Finance Director, I don't know how it worked with the city. I know when I was at the state, you had to be an employee to operate state vehicles. Is that the same with the city?
That's another part that I'll have to check in with the insurance company and whatnot first.
Is there any further discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
This is something that I was trying to keep my motion not so long-winded. Mr. Johnson got pretty close to what I see as something that we should at least investigate and explore just from a cost perspective. It looks like we're, from the figures that we were able to get from Mr. Tankersley, I think it looked like we're increasing our costs in this realm by about $100,000 a year in maintaining police department vehicles at a basic level. And I guess where I'm coming from is that, okay, we could sit here and we could say that, well, maybe the mistake was made a long time ago when we designed in a garage into the department without really considering how it would be staffed. But there's no point in doing that. The garage is there. It's a beautiful garage. I'm sure. I haven't seen it, but I bet you it's super nice, and I bet you it definitely deserves to be used. It would be great to have fleet management and all of that. I support all of those things because I think it would be really important. I just don't see that spending $150,000 a year on oil changes, washer fluid, wiper blades, and tire changes is a good use of the city's money, considering that, and what I've heard in support of this is that it saves the officers time driving someplace, okay? And this contract idea, put this out to bid, have a contractor use the garage at the police department. You fix the problem that was brought up about police officers and police staff, or WPD staff shuttling vehicles back and forth. You eliminate that issue, and you also just have somebody working in that garage only when it's necessary, and maybe they come in on a scheduled basis. Maybe it's one day a week. I bet it wouldn't take more than that to do oil changes, washer fluid, maybe washer fluid. Washer fluid might be more frequent than that. I don't know, but depending on how sloppy the roads are. But still, I can't see from this perspective how it justifies a full-time position to top off washer fluid reservoirs.
Chief, would you like to weigh in on this, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Council through the Mayor. Yes, one thing that I'd like to point out is this position's more than just oil changes in washer fluid. There's a lot that goes into patrol cars. Yeah, this person would be, obviously, they would be changing oil, changing tires, doing routine maintenance, but that's just a component of the job. They're really going to be managing all of our vehicles at the police department. The police vehicles are driven a little bit differently. Hopefully they're driven a little bit differently than everybody drives their vehicles. They're through a lot of stress and driven pretty hard. And there's a safety factor that goes along with that. We also can't predict exactly when they're going to break down. We have weekly, sometimes daily breakdowns of vehicles that have to be addressed. Yeah, the vehicles are more than just the brakes and the washer fluid and the oil. They're a IT/computer module driving around, and all of the additional equipment that goes into it. And this person's going to have or develop a working knowledge of all of that to be able to manage that. They'll be making recommendations on whether we get a vehicle repaired or not, or what that priority is. They're going to be inventory of what's in that vehicle and what needs to be changed out. They'll be preparing reports for command staff on when we need to replace a vehicle or what we need to be considering for budgetary components for the next budget cycle. So this is more than just a 19-year-old changing oil in the garage. So.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I ask Chief a couple of questions about that?
Sure.
Councilman Rousa. So I can see that happening, that system performing really well if there was a public works shop, a fleet management system in place already, that sort of thing. My concern comes from this being a standalone position on an island, where your supervisor is the chief of police. Your duties are, I don't want to try to guess what your duties are exactly, but they're probably more directed at policing than at mechanicking. I could assume that, right? So, this position is on its own, isolated in its own facility, and we don't have anything else in the city that looks like it. And so that's where my concern comes from is, fleet management I think is really important. I'm just a little bit concerned about having a brand new position, brand new person, and having it, obviously it's, reasonably well funded. Yeah, could you, do you have any concerns there? I guess that's my question about this being a brand new thing that has no reference.
Well, I guess my comment would be I rely on a lot of people through the city. Our IT folks, I rely on them for providing that information to us for our building and for our vehicles, and rely on city shop folks for maintenance recommendations at the police department. So I guess I'm not concerned about having a mechanic, fleet person that would be providing those recommendations to us. Now, whether the position falls under police department, whether it falls under city shop, I guess that certainly could be up for discussion. But having a single point of reference for these recommendations doesn't necessarily concern me.
Thank you.
Mr. Elsa, please keep in mind that every city employee works for me. And believe it or not, I know a little bit about mechanics.
Thank you. And I can see this program going really well if the right person is there, right? Ms. Vilaka, sorry.
That's
Go ahead.
okay. Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I just was wanting to know what kind of expertise this position would have. I mean, that is quite a bit of money when you think of oil change and even managing the fleet. You know, that's over $30 an hour, the $66,000 a year, which is probably more than most of the police officers, I think. I mean, it just seems like a lot. So I don't know if there's some kind of expertise, schooling they have to go to maybe to read these computers, or because you said they're not a mechanic, so they don't need to know maybe how to fix a vehicle. So that's my only question, is what kind of expertise they need, what kind of qualifications, did they have to go to school, you know, what justifies over $30 an hour for this position?
And maybe Mr. Tankersley can chime in on that as well, but I can tell you the job, we haven't just developed a job description per se. I have done a little bit of looking on this type of job, working on police cars across the nation. I found a few pieces of input. Most of them are requiring people that have 3 to 5 years minimum of experience, some sort of SAE qualifications, which are mechanic type of qualifications, and are somewhere in the neighborhood of what we're asking, what we're proposing for pay as well.
I really don't have a lot to add. I mean, yeah, it's, you know, a little over $31 an hour, and but what we're asking for when we're talking about the police vehicles, it's not just a grease monkey, lack of a better term, to go in there and do oil changes. We're asking them to maintain our police officers' vehicles, not just fluids, but the tires and electronics and whatnot too. So.
Troy, can you expand on the safety issue about our police vehicles being in another shop and what has happened and can happen?
So the chief could probably help me with this too, but I can tell you this, that in one of the shops that one of the police vehicles is in, and this is another reason what prompted this, and it's not the first time this has happened, but the vehicle was in the shop. And as you know, we have cameras in the cars, and lo and behold, here's a grease monkey in the front seat acting high on the hog, you know, so showing off and with sirens and lights and all this kind of stuff. So obviously that's a contractor issue. That's, you know, and it was dealt with, but it's clearly a safety issue.
Madam Mayor, this is Tim Johnson. I do not question the need for doing the maintenance of these vehicles in the police shop. That's not the issue at all. Having it done externally obviously is going to cause us all kinds of problems. The only thing is who's doing it, how's it funded, and who does it report to?
Well, I can tell you right up front, every director in the city of Wasilla reports to the mayor. Every supervisor in the city of Wasilla meets with the mayor once a month. This position would be no different. So therefore, the mechanic will work for the chief, and the chief works for me.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Brown.
Yes, sir.
Again, everybody's attention, talking about 38 vehicles. If you think of just a vehicle, yes, it's a simple operation, but 38 vehicles that has heavy, constant use every day of the week with a lot of things going in, a lot of people getting in and out, causing problems, a lot of code runs, and I think is just a perfect solution. And I can't, from my experience, I know every chief, every commander would love to have a fleet manager on their staff to manage those vehicles, because there's a lot of time that the chief or somebody in his office having to manage this, order vehicles, come up with recommendations for vehicles, go out and research, to do the research on the car that's being made for the current year and stuff. So I think it's a perfect thing for the chief, and the chief, he's a police officer, but he's more than just managing police officers. He's managing programs, and this is another program.
Madam Mayor, this is Tim Johnson. May I comment, please?
Yes.
Mr. Brown, I certainly understand your position. However, I would like to see our chief of police be just that, chief of police. I would not want him to be managing a mechanic or a fleet. That isn't necessarily what a police chief needs to do. I agree with the need. I agree with where it is. I agree with everything else except for that.
Madam Mayor, may I?
Yes, Mr. Burney.
What is the current motion on the floor?
We have, it is to, Jamie, please restate the motion.
Unless I got it incorrectly, it's for the funding to remain in place, to supply the mechanic, but to bid out for it, and then whoever wins the bid, I don't know if it's a person or a company, they'll supply the mechanic to come to WPD, be on site, essentially a contract city employee to fill the slot. Is that correct, Mr. Johnson? Yeah, that's the motion.
And there indeed was a second.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. We need a roll call vote, Jamie.
Okay. Councilmember Johnson, how do you vote?
Madam Clerk, could you articulate voting yes or no, what that means real quick?
Sure. So thank you, through the chair to Councilmember Rousa. So if you vote yes on the motion, the funding remains in place and it becomes a contract employee. If you vote no, that fails, and what's still in the budget is the city employee.
You know, before, Jamie, hold off a minute. Before we start the voting, Troy, I would like for you to reiterate about the PERS and all of this, and about them driving city vehicles, the whole 9 yards, because this is not like a company. This is city government.
Madam Mayor, so I'm going to have to do some research. I cannot honestly answer definitively tonight, but I have concern with regards to PERS. I have concern about contract labor as it relates to 1099 and how it relates to aviation versus government. And I have just a general concern about contract labor. This is a defined, authorized, and if approved position for the city of Wasilla. Not a contract that was bid out, if you will, and RFP'd through competitive process. And so I do have some concern there. As far as safety goes and the vehicles go, that's a question I have for our insurance pool, one that I can't answer as well.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, can I comment before we move on?
1 second.
1 second?
That's all you got.
Not going to be enough. I
Talk
might need
fast.
30 to 40.
You've already used it.
Okay. I'm sorry, she totally threw me off.
Point of order, the question has been called for, which ends the discussion.
Okay. Jamie, would you call roll for the vote?
Okay. So Councilmember Johnson, how do you vote on your amendment?
Yes.
Councilmember Burney?
No.
Councilmember Vlock?
No.
Councilmember Brown?
No.
Councilmember Rousa?
No.
No. So the amendment fails. with Councilmember Johnson in favor, Council Members Rouse, Bernie, Velock, and Brown voting no.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, Mr. Rosa, do you have another amendment?
I do, ma'am.
Would you please state your amendment?
Yes, amendment number 6, I would like to modify the MATCOM budget to include some amount for marketing. The amount that I saw spent was $1,200 something in copies, and I don't think that we're accounting for our marketing budget properly by calling it copies. It's not accurate, and so it's false. First of all, these aren't just copies; it's marketing. And then there's nothing currently listed as marketing. There's no line item for marketing. And if somebody could point me to the page on that, I might be able to articulate this better. And I can restate a motion once I get there if you'd like.
Page 131, I think. Was that for Councilmember Rouse, through the chair, if I may? Was that 50/50 recruitment, training materials, and public outreach, that $3,000 amount?
Yes, ma'am, it was printing and binding. And I had asked the question to Mr. Butcher when he was here, and I was told that the printing and binding, it was just put there because there's no marketing budget. So those costs were just put there because there wasn't anywhere else to put them.
Madam Mayor, I think we need a second.
No, we need a motion.
So I move to amend the Public Safety Dispatch Center budget to include a line item for marketing.
I'll second that.
The motion has been made and seconded, made by Mr. Roush, seconded by Mr. Bernie. And is there discussion?
Councilman Brown, do you have a rough dollar figure that you want to add for?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I would love to propose a dollar figure, but as legal very accurately pointed out on Monday, that's not really our job to do that. I think that Madam Mayor should probably talk with the department head and figure that out, because there's some details probably in their daily operations that we shouldn't concern ourselves with. I should think it should be at least $1,500 just based on what was spent, but knowing that this money was just put there, I bet you it doesn't appropriately reflect what it should be. So I don't know. I'm sure it wouldn't support radio advertising or whatever kind of marketing might be necessary.
Troy?
Madam Mayor, so number one, no. In our chart of accounts and accounting, we don't have a marketing line and probably won't have one on a one-off kind of scenario like this. When we have a line item like this that's flagged under printing and binding for that specific purpose, yeah, it's under printing and binding, but assure me when I say that marketing can come in print material, advertising line items, Facebook, which is maintenance, computer maintenance potentially, or dues and subscription. Those several line items can all encompass marketing. It's also my understanding through many years, the council does have the ability to increase or decrease any line item at this juncture of the budget. They can also give guidance as to what the intent is there, all right, which is quite different than what legal was trying to interpret to you Monday night. So if it's council's wishes to increase that line item, 50/20, I think, by $1,500, my understanding would be the motion.
Okay, Mr. Russell, you ready to make your motion?
Well, I did make a motion, and it was seconded, and we're discussing that. So I clearly misunderstood what Mr. Butcher's response was when he was here. He said, and we could go back and listen to the record, I suppose, but he said, well, I meant to, I've been meaning to spend time putting a budget together for marketing, but I just haven't done it yet. That's what I heard him say. So I don't know, of course, you're obviously more skilled at assembling these budgets. It's your baby, right? And I don't know where those numbers would fit appropriately. My motion that I just made was to add a line item for marketing. You're telling me, hey, that's not how it works, buddy. So I'm not sure what to amend my motion to include, but we'll need some guidance. My intent here is to add money to marketing so we don't have to say that it was something else.
Madam Mayor, it's not my intent to say that you're wrong. My intent was to say that line item under 5020 where he's got it flagged for marketing, that's his intent, under printing and binding, is fine and is appropriate. And if it's council's wishes to increase that 3,000, I believe, to a new $4,500 figure, that would be the motion if that's your intent.
Madam
For
Mayor,
that purpose.
Yes, Mr. Brown?
if I may make a suggestion to Councilman, is to withdraw his motion and make a new motion to increase the print line to $4,500.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I'd like to hear from Mr. Butcher. Is he available by phone?
No, he's not. He's out sick.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, so Councilmember Rousa, so is your issue actually with wanting some marketing dollars or the actual description of the account code?
Yeah, so I'm not so concerned about the account code. My main concern is that what this highlighted for me is that there's a need for marketing dollars that don't exist. And so these expenses are being accounted for in other places. And that was what Mr. Butcher's testimony confirmed to me as well when I asked him questions about this.
But that he was getting his marketing done, but he's just doing it through a different account, or did he need more money?
What his actual response was is that we don't have a marketing budget. That's what he said. And he said, we don't have a marketing budget. It's something that I've been meaning to put together, but we just don't have one, so I needed to put those expenses somewhere, so that's where they're at. So that's where my concern lies. I'm not concerned too much about the the account coding. Thank you.
Troy,
Okay.
Archie,
I'm the other Troy.
you're the other Troy.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Archie Giddings, Public Works Director. So if you go back on page 131, I think this question came up because there was an increase in printing and binding. So he made an increase there for printing and binding, and the printing and binding would be used to promote the facility. So I think that's how we arrived there. And as Troy pointed out, if you want to do radio ads, that's another line item. If you want to do training for marketing, that's another line item. So there's a lot of opportunity to do that, but I think this all started with he had an increase in printing and binding, and that increase was solely for marketing.
James.
Okay, so Mr. Giddings, you're saying that an increase has already been accounted for, and it provides them with the dollars they need for marketing in the way that they want to market.
That's what I see. There's a $1,951 increase in printing and binding, and that's what's his intent, to use that $1,900 to develop a new marketing system, which is pretty much printing and binding and distributing. And he'd do the distributing himself.
Okay, thank you. And I think I've been confused here a bit by Mr. Butcher's response, for sure, because it just wasn't what it sounded like. My main concern is with a difficult to staff position, not having the ability to attract people to fill those difficult positions. People leave all the time from that dispatch position. It's incredibly important, And I just think that it would be really important as a city to make sure that it's funded properly, the effort to attract good people. So the response I heard from Mr. Butcher, again, led me to ask these questions. So thank you. I withdraw my motion if, I'd really like to hear from Mr. Butcher, but if that's not possible, and I assume that what Mr. Giddings is saying is accurate, then I have no need to make this motion, so I would withdraw this motion.
Okay. Okay, is there any further discussion on ordinance serial number 2121? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance serial number 21-01 as amended.
Councilmember Bernie.
Yes.
Councilmember Velock.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Rousa.
No.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2121 as amended passes with Councilmembers Johnson, Bernie, Velock, and Brown in support, Councilmember Rousa opposed, and Councilmember Harvey absent.
There are no more items scheduled for public hearing, so we'll move to persons to be heard. Yes.
To our finance director, with the adoption of the budget, do you want to read the final budget numbers into the record so we have those? Because
That's okay with the mayor, but
Yes.
I do need a few minutes to.
We will turn at 7:17. Troy.
Madam Mayor, to read into the record the new numbers, there's only three actually, starting on line 33, where it reads 34,122,004 should now read 34,134,004. On line 38, far right, where it's referencing capital fund, the old number 1254000 is now 1,266,000 even, or 1,266,000. And then moving down to approximately line 55, again for the total FY22 appropriation should read 34,134,004.
004.
I'm sorry?
004.
004. And that's it for the approved changes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, we are moving on to persons to be heard, or audience comments, and there's nobody in the audience. So, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So unless there's objection from the body, since the budget was adopted this evening, I'm going to go ahead and cancel the remaining special meetings that we had scheduled dedicated for the budget in case we went beyond tonight. And I will see you here all on May 10th for our next regular meeting. That's all my comments, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Bernie.
No comment tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Brown.
No comment, Mayor.
Councilmember Velock.
Comments.
Councilmember Johnson. He must have left. And Councilmember Rousa.
No comment.
Councilmember Rousa, have you taken the training?
What are you referring to, Madam Mayor?
Jamie, will you explain it to him?
It came out of our HR department. It's to do with, it's from the city's insurance carrier to lower our premium by a bit if the council takes, we've had a couple emails on it. I apologize. I haven't.
Is that the FEMA training?
No, ma'am. No. This is from APEI, Alaska Public Entities Insurance, and if city employees have to take training, and then if the elected body does too, we get a certain discount on our overall premium. And I'll defer to council. I'll send you the link.
I'm going to tell them myself. I still have to do it myself.
Okay, Mr. Bernie, now that you've told on yourself,
And it is, Madam Mayor, through the chair to the body, I believe it's due by April 30th.
yes. So please do so, because you will be helping the city save some money. Okay, it's my comment. Thank you so much for you guys serving in the position you're in. And as I said, my door's always open. I appreciate my directors. They do an excellent job on keeping this city running smoothly and conservatively. And that, in this day and time, is something to really, really be proud of. So I am proud of all you directors. So with that, the meeting's adjourned at 7:21.